Hi everyone, it's Amity. Welcome back to another video. Today we are doing yet another ranking slash tier list kind of video, and this time we are covering all of the Dark Pictures series of games created by Supermassive game studios. For anyone unfamiliar, the Dark Pictures games are a series of choice-based anthology-style games heavily dependent on strong narrative and player decision-making. The games feature hundreds of branching story paths that all change when the player makes certain choices within the game. They're all quite short games, but they've managed to make a pretty big impact within the horror gaming sphere over the years. All the games feature a different cult as well, which makes them seem unique against each other, even though they all share a very similar gameplay style. Recently, Season 1 of their Dark Pictures anthologies came to an end, and with Season 2 kickstarting next year with Directive 8020, I figured this would be a good time to go over all the games that are out now and share my thoughts on them. Few disclaimers before we start, of course. I will be ranking the 4 existing Dark Pictures games as well as The Quarry and Until Dawn. Although those last two aren't part of the Dark Pictures anthology, they follow the same gameplay style as the others, so I'm including them. The only game not going to be featured in this video is the casting of Frank Stone, which is a game they brought out recently in the Dead by Daylight universe that I have not had a chance yet to play, unfortunately. Secondly, I played all of these games myself on the PS5 in single player mode. They do all feature the option of co-op campaigns, but I wanted to keep the competition fair, so I did my first playthroughs single player in all of them. And lastly, all the footage shown in this video are from my very own game playthroughs. I'll leave a link to the playlist in the cards and in the description of this video if you want to watch the full playthroughs, and my Twitch channel is also linked in my bio if you want to see me play the entire series live as they release. But with all that out of the way, let's get into the rankings. I'll be ranking these in order of my least favorite to my favorite, but rest assured none of these games are bad. In fact, I highly recommend you play all of them if you can. But there does have to be someone at the bottom of the barrel, unfortunately, and sadly, that is Man of Medan. Man of Medan was the first of the Dark Pictures anthology to release. It's fairly straightforward. In its story, a group of friends want to go diving to explore an abandoned shipwreck at the bottom of the ocean, see if there's any treasures they can nab, which seems like a smart idea. But along the way, they get kidnapped by a group of pirates who want to share the prize. Eventually, the characters discover the ship is haunted by ghosts and the previous passengers died of some sort of possession? Infection? Something not friendly, whatever it was. The game is the shortest of the lot. It clocked in at only around 3 hours long. It eases you in fairly slowly to the concept of the Dark Pictures games, and I found it to be one of the easiest as well. I actually ended up with no deaths during my run. Unfortunately, its short runtime is its downfall. Not a whole lot happened in this game that really stuck with me, and it was fairly forgettable after we finished it. I also didn't find it overly scary. Lots of the anxiety just came from the kidnappers, not the ghosties themselves. I still think it's worth a play though if you're going through the whole series, but I can see how this one in particular would be a lot more fun with a friend. Next up on the list is Little Hope. This is the second game in the Dark Pictures series, and this one deals with witchcraft and takes inspiration from the Salem witch trials. I really wanted to like this one. I'd seen probably the most of this game out of the entire series. I like how the witch trials were incorporated into the characters' stories, and it adds a layer of intrigue and extra thinking on what is already kind of a stressful game. Without spoiling anything as well, this game also has a pretty cool twist at the end, and that in particular stands out to me compared to the rest of the other games. But something that also stands out is the trait system. In the Dark Pictures games, the characters are each given different personality traits, which can influence with the dialogue choices you make, and unlock different paths depending on your relationship with certain people. Usually this is just a fun little tidbit and doesn't actually mean much in the games, but for this one particular entry, they apparently do matter, which made me very salty to find out that I had a no-death run until the last 5 minutes of the game. But anger aside, this was a fun game and it definitely felt like a step up from the previous entry, taking a whole half an hour longer, and it's a good light forward for the upcoming games. Taking a little break now from the anthology is The Quarry. This was a standalone title that Supermassive did using the same formula as the Dark Pictures games, but with a much longer story. The Quarry clocks in at around 8 hours long, which is almost 3 times longer than most of the Dark Pictures titles. Starting with the positives, The Quarry deals with werewolves, and I really like their adaptation of the creature. These aren't gentle, fluffy pups like Jacob London in Twilight. The monster design definitely aided the terror in this game, and it actually had me stopping and thinking about my choices for a good few extra seconds. The decisions I made feel like they hold a lot of weight in this game and had some pretty gnarly consequences down the track. This entry also tries to focus more on its characters and their stories. There's still only about 5 characters, but there's a lot of other people pulling strings that can change how things go down. Unfortunately, that becomes my one complaint with this game. The only thing stopping it from getting higher on my list personally is the dialogue and the cutscenes. The Supermassive games thrive on dialogue choices, and almost all of the story is delivered through interactable cutscenes. But I feel like a good 60% of my time with this game was just sitting and watching these, having to only pick up my controller every few minutes to maybe do a QTE. I really wanted to replay this one afterwards to change some of my choices, but just knowing I'd have to sit through all of that again makes it a really tough decision. There's even actually a movie mode in the main menu that just plays through randomized cutscenes in like a feature-length movie. So even though I do highly recommend this game still, it is a little bit more of a drag to get through than the others. The next game on the list I actually have tied with The Quarry. The third Dark Pictures game is House of Ashes, and it's the only one that coming into this I'd seen a little bit of the gameplay. Nothing that spoiled the experience, but enough that I kind of knew what I was going in for. So the House of Ashes chooses to focus on vampires, but these ones do not glitter in the sunlight. In fact, they burn in it. We control a small team of military personnel who end up deep underground in literally a vampire nest. Out of all the 4 Dark Pictures games, this one is the one I would say the most scariest. The anxiety feels on par with like an Alien movie. Walking in and just seeing the hive of xenomorphs, it has that same atmosphere. The design of the vampires is literally terrifying, and you do feel a little helpless among them despite having an entire arsenal of guns. The atmosphere of this one was just super well done, and it had me on the edge of my seat and sweating quite a lot of the time. Even when you think it's over, it's not, and it never seems to give you a break from just all of the action that's happening. I think the dynamic of all the characters and their relationships amongst each other also adds to the tension. The 2 sides fighting at war have to fight together to survive, and there's some marriage drama sprinkled in there too. And despite a supposed success at the end, it doesn't feel rewarding. I absolutely loved this entry, and this is where I really started to get my hopes up for the Dark Pictures Anthology. And next is the final game from the Dark Pictures so far, The Devil in Me. This one I was a little skeptical on because it doesn't really deal with anything supernatural. The horror in this one is the people, but it's also loosely based on a true story, which is cool. The game takes after the tale of America's first serial killer, H.H. Holmes. You play as a group of film students who are taking a weekend retreat, what's supposed to be a replica of his mansion, in the hopes to film a cool documentary there. But it turns out the guy who lives there is actually just a really avid fan, and he's recreated the entire murder house down to every detail. You're now fighting with his intelligence and the house around you, just trying to survive the Saw-esque traps hidden around the place and escape with your friends alive. It might not be the scariest of the 4 games in the anthology, but this one for sure had me thinking the hardest. All the little moving pieces kept me on my toes, and it really felt like my choices mattered here. Some of them were even really hard to make. It's not always clear which option is going to be the correct one. Sometimes I even overthought it a little too much, and I did sadly get 2 people killed in this run, which still isn't bad considering the circumstances. It was a super cool story to play through though, and definitely the highlight of the Dark Pictures Anthology. Some of the set pieces are really well done, and without spoiling anything, just knowing you have no control over the whole situation does wonders for the tension. If you had to pick one Dark Pictures game to play, I would definitely make it this one. And lastly, we have made our way to first placed on the list, and that trophy is being awarded to Until Dawn. Funnily enough, this is actually the first game in this style that Supermassive Studios made even before the Dark Pictures Anthology started, and it still manages to sit on top for me. It also happened to be the first of their games that I ever played. It's become somewhat of a classic in the choice-based gaming scene, and there is definitely a reason for that. I remember going into this game expecting to be scared, but I didn't realize exactly what I would be in for. The occult here is Wendigos, which are scary enough on their own, but the design of these things and the way they hunt you down is literally terrifying. Not only are the QTEs fast here, but the don't move sections are implemented really well. Having a Wendigo literally like 10 centimeters from your face and just trying to sit still to avoid being spotted is ass clenching. I honestly don't think I've felt this level of anxiety in a game ever since. The R18 rating is also well earned. This game is brutal. I literally had no idea what I was getting into, and I really encourage going into this game as blind as possible to just get the full effect. The story alongside it too is also really engaging. I again won't spoil anything here because it truly is something you have to discover on your own, but this might be my favorite set of characters in any of the games. The events that play out and the twists around every corner had me hooked, and my jaw was literally on the floor. The little psychological evaluations in between each chapter are also a nice touch. The Dark Pictures games basically have the same mechanic as like the curator. He keeps a track of your deaths and gives you little hints in between each chapter. But in this game, it's like a therapist guy, and he is creepy. It legitimately makes you feel like you're being judged by what you do. Probably my only complaint with this game, and keeping it from being perfect, is just the controls feel a bit clunky to move around with and maneuvering the camera, but it doesn't take away from the overall experience of the game. If you have any way to play this, I highly encourage you to do so. Even better, they're doing a brand new enhanced remake of it, releasing this October for PS5 and PC. So there's really no better time to play it than now. I really can't wait to see how they tweak this game and add to the horror with all new camera angles and scenes and dialogue, and it's just going to be awesome. But there we go. That is my personal ranking of all of the current Supermassive games and the Dark Pictures Anthology. I really enjoy this style of choice-based gameplay and the impact it just has on you as a player. I feel like it adds such a level of anxiety just knowing that the choices you make can have such a big impact down the line no matter how little they are, and every character living or dying is literally tied to how you perform. It's on another level. I could not be more excited to experience that terror again with the brand new Until Dawn remake and the start of Dark Pictures Season 2 next year, starting with Directive 8020. It looks absolutely amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of my rankings for the next Dark Pictures Anthology when they release, be sure to stick around. Subscribe to the channel to see more videos just like this one, and consider checking out the Twitch link in my bio as well to see me play these games live when they release. Also, let me know down in the comments what your personal favourite of these games are, and if you're excited for their new ones as well. Thanks again for watching, guys. Until next time, everyone, stay safe, have a wonderful time zone, and goodbye.